This is Salt Lake City's Regent Street 100 years ago. It was pretty deserted, and Lower State Street was practically vacant as November continued in 1918. It is because the health department sent people home. The worldwide flu epidemic hit Utah hard. Quarantines were the law. Nearly 10% of Salt Lake residents had the flu. 576 would die in Salt Lake City. As of October 10th, 1918, meetings were banned. Amusements were closed. Schools such as Jackson Elementary were closed indefinitely. Show houses such as the Salt Lake Theater were emptied, and churches were closed. Old city churches, such as this, the Episcopal Cathedral Church of St. Mark, had empty pews by state law 100 years ago. It lasted for 10 weeks. Church historian Kurt Cook says it was a difficult order for a frightened congregation.
And in times of events when people ordinarily would turn to a church to pray and to seek solace and comfort, they couldn't come.
But church records show all took heed. Cook has extensively studied the flu epidemic.
And it was almost immediately obeyed everywhere. There was a lot of fear because no one figured out exactly how the flu was spreading other than whenever you got a group together, it really flared up.
Of course, there were all kinds of cures proposed. The Keith O'Brien store said wearing silk underwear would help. Each newsie was ordered to wear a mask, as was each person living in Provo, and barbers. Ogden City joined other cities prohibiting groups of more than 3 people in public. And no more public funerals or viewings. Family only, and funerals were limited to 30 minutes. The president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Joseph F. Smith, died during those 50 days of mandatory private funeral restrictions. And thus he had a private funeral, although he was honored by having businesses closed throughout Utah. But out of it all, historian Cook says he is touched by reading the stories of heroes and stories of makeshift hospitals full of people serving the afflicted.
It's one thing when you get on a streetcar and you don't know who does, who doesn't, but you walk in the doors of this other hospital, and you're walking into a flu factory.
Again, since no one really knew how it spread, spitting was outlawed, as was card playing. But it was the medical heroes of 1918 who finally got it in check. Some schools opened after 50 days, although the university did not for another month, and one needed a certificate of good health to travel to Ogden. But on December 8th, the city rejoiced. The churches were opened, as were movie houses after 10 weeks.
It had to have been a great relief in many cases.
Utah could return to normal. And there would be music once more at the Cathedral Church of St. Mark, a time when fear grabbed a state, and finally it was over. So 100 years ago, the pews were empty, the doors were locked, there were no Bible readings, no sermons. It must have been very eerie. Craig Wirth, ABC 4 News.